Hello, my name is JB. I live in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm going to be talking about something that's very personal. And the reason that I'm going to be talking about this subject is that I want to help people because I know there are a lot of people, um, young people, who are experiencing difficulties in life, and then older people, their parents or their guardians who are having to deal with them that could benefit from what I know because of what I lived. So I'm 37 now, but what I'm going to be talking about are things that mostly happened from the time that I was 8 until the time that I was 18. And then at the very end, I'll give you some advice about what you can do if you realize that there's a problem. So I'll start out at the beginning. I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina. Um, I was born into a family that had two parents, mom and dad, and I had a brother. And then later on, my little sister came. And my life was really good from the time that I was 0 until the time that I was 5. I was very happy, and I still have very, very happy memories of those times. Then after that, I went to school, started in kindergarten, and everything was pretty good. First grade, pretty good. Second grade, pretty good. Third grade, my parents started to notice, and my teachers started to notice that I did well in school, really well, um, usually the best in my class, or close. But I got easily distracted. I sometimes sat on my chair. I fidgeted. I talked in class. I read or played with baseball cards or did other things that I wasn't supposed to be doing in class. And they took me to some sort of specialist, and the specialist said that I had ADD and ADHD. ADD is attention deficit disorder, ADHD is attention deficit hyperactive disorder. They said I had those things, and they gave me some medicine, I think, if I recall correctly. And everything was okay. I mean, there were still some issues, but it like it's not abnormal for kids to be fidgety and to be distracted and to do their own thing and to sometimes not listen to the teacher, that sort of thing. But when I was in 5th grade, my mother, she got cancer, and she beat the cancer, which was really good for her and everybody else in our family. But the bad thing is that she had enormous bills because of that. I think the number was around $70,000, and this was 1996. And because of that, and the fact that my parents were going to pay their debts because that's the kind of people they are, they spent the next 20 years paying off those debts. And when I was like in 5th grade and 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, ninth grade, um, the times that I really lived with them, um, they struggled. They just couldn't pay all the bills. They couldn't provide everything that we needed, and there were fights for resources. And a lot of times, I was the one that lost. Not because I didn't fight hard enough, maybe because I fought too hard. And because my parents always liked my brother a little more because he was the firstborn, and they liked my sister a little more because she was the baby. And they really didn't like my personality because from a very early age, I had an opinion and I had ideas and I asked questions and I demanded answers. And I wanted to know why things were done the way they were done and why decisions were made the way they were made. And my parents, are from North Carolina, very conservative thinkers, and their idea was that kids should not have ideas, should not have opinions, should not be asking questions. We're the parents, you're the kids, you do what the hell we say. That's how they saw it. And so, like, starting in 6th grade, I was in middle school, and they sent me to school without good clothes, and they sent me to school sometimes without food, and or a way to buy food. And when I told them that I needed food for lunch because I was hungry, uh, they said, "We don't have the money." And I said, "Well, you need to fill out this form so that I can get it for free." And they said, "No, that program is for poor people. We're not poor, we just don't have any money." And so they wouldn't let me get free lunch, even though I could have um, uh, been given it by the government and by the school. It's a USDA program. Um, it's a federal government program that is administered by the schools. But so they wouldn't give me lunch. So at lunchtime, um, I wanted to hang out with my friends, and I did when I had food. But in order to not be embarrassed by the fact that I was the only kid not eating, I would go to the library and read books, and later on get on the computer when that became a thing. When the internet became a big deal, everybody got to use the internet. That was around that time, 6th, 7th grade. Um, but kids would pick on me because a lot of times I would go to the lost and found, and I would find something that was not mine, but it looked nice, and it fit me. So I found it for myself, you know? I adopted it, I like to say. And then sometimes people would notice that I adopted clothes that were in the lost and found, and they would pick on me some more. And then I would get in a fight. I would have to slam them up against the locker and push them around a little bit, maybe punch them some. Um, and then I would get in trouble for that. And I would just be upset and angry all the time because of the situation that my parents were in and how it was affecting me. And so when I was in class, I would be disruptive. I would be disrespectful to the teachers. I would make my own rules a lot of times. Um, and I often did so well in class um, academically that after I was done, and I was always done way before everybody else, I would get done early with my work, and then I would just do whatever I was going to do. And you're not allowed to do that because they have rules at school. You need to do what the teacher says. But I didn't exactly fall in line. And so I would get in more trouble for that. And at home, I was angry at my parents. My dad worked a lot. He was a hard worker, and he still is. He's been doing tile since 1974 or something, and full time. And he is a good person. He wanted always to provide for the family. The problem was that he couldn't, and the reason he couldn't is because I'll tell this really quickly. So my grandfather started a tile company in the early 1950s, and in the 70s, my uncle, who was a little older than my dad, started working there because he dropped out of school in the ninth grade. He got experience before my dad even started. And then my dad started, and my uncle and my dad built this company from just a small operation to a really good company that had employees and that had lots of resources and that had assets, and that was well known for what they did, which was installing tile and marble with quality craftsmanship. But eventually, my uncle took over the company. He started managing it like in the late 70s and early 80s, but he took over ownership in the 90s. And when he did that, all the resources of the company went to him, the profits went to him, and he left my dad out. But my dad still worked there, and he had to work there because that's what he did, and he was a loyal person who wanted to make the company good because it was a family company. Even though he wasn't getting profits from it, It was a family company, and he he had to keep working. At one point, um, my uncle owned our house that we lived in. Lived in a condo in the late '80s, and he also owned my dad's truck. So my dad couldn't quit because then he wouldn't have a house, he wouldn't have a truck, and he wouldn't have a job. And so he had to keep going. But at home, um, there would be fights for resources. You know, if my mom only had a certain amount of money for clothes, or for food, or for school trips, or for to participate in something we were supposed to participate in at school, like sports or band or choir or whatever, cheerleading, my sister, um, she would decide who got what. And a lot of times I got left out because there just wasn't enough money for everybody, and they had their priorities, and I was not the priority. And that made me angry. And so we would have um, arguments, really loud arguments. Um, we had arguments that turned into fights, really bad fights. And we had um, just generally a lot of violence. If my dad came home and he didn't like something that he saw, or something that either I did or I was accused of doing, he got violent. And I remember one time he choked me until I passed out. One time he put his hand over my mouth and nose until I passed out. One time he slapped me in the face so much that I had red handprints on my face. Um, One time he put his knees on my chest to where I couldn't breathe, and he got up on top of me and held my neck and was slapping me. A lot of stuff like that. And he uh, felt like that was the best way to deal with it. I don't think that he was trying to hurt me or kill me, but he was trying to solve a problem. He's doing it wrong. Nobody would tell you that it was okay, but he thought that's how he had to do it. And so that's what he did. And every time he did that, I would respond. I would destroy something. I would break something. I would, fight more. And eventually, when I was in seventh grade, at the very end of seventh grade in May of 1999, I was removed from the house. Um, so instead of us finding resources to solve this resource problem so that everybody could be a whole lot happier, um, the resource problem never got solved. But I became the problem because of how I responded to the resource problem, and how I responded to the fact that my parents weren't meeting my needs, and that my brother and sister were having their needs met, and I wasn't having my needs met. And I became the problem. The police um, saw me as the problem because in North Carolina, you do what your parents say. They're the parents, you're the kid. Even if they're wrong, you do what they say, and that's the way it is. So if they beat you, that's okay. If they harm you, that's okay. If they don't buy you lunch, that's okay. They're the parents. You just shut up, and you do what they say, and you be a kid. And that's how the police looked at it at that time, and I imagine they probably still do. Because in very conservative areas, that's the way people approach that. But it's wrong, but that's how they approach it. And any kid who doesn't do what their parents say isn't not obeying authority, and so the kid is the problem, even if the kid isn't actually the problem. So I was removed from the house at the very end of seventh grade. I went to a hospital. To be perfectly honest with you, I went to a hospital because they said something's wrong with me. Not Jarrett's being affected by things that are out of his control and he's responding wrong. They're saying something's wrong with him. He's the problem here. So they took me to this hospital in North Carolina. It's a state hospital. It's called Broughton Hospital. It's a very well known hospital. You could look it up and you'll learn all about it. Um, but they took me there, and I stayed in a youth ward for around 4 months. I think it was May until September, so 4 months. Could have been October. It may have been like 4.5 months. I don't exactly remember the exact day that I left there, but I was there the whole summer, and I actually liked it there. It wasn't bad because I got 3 meals a day. Um, Everything that I needed was there. There were things to do. There were places that I could go. I could look out the window and see the mountains, which I liked. There was a basketball gym. They took us swimming. They took us horseback riding. They took us to do different activities, to do crafts and do all these things. We went to these little concerts that they have sometimes. We went to fairs and festivals that were in the town Morganton right there, and we went to the mountains sometimes and took tours. And we went to Lake James, this beautiful lake, kind of in that area. And so it wasn't too bad for me. But at a certain point, they said, "You can't keep staying at this hospital." They didn't say it to me, but they were saying it to my parents. "He can't keep staying at this hospital. We have to find him somewhere to go. But where's he going to go?" And, that can be a problem. Finding a place for a kid to go can be really hard. And I know it was back then, and now it's probably a lot worse. But because there's fewer and fewer resources to get more and more kids help. But eventually they found this place. It was a therapeutic wilderness camp. Well, before I tell you about that, they almost sent me to American Samoa. American Samoa is an island in the Pacific. They had some facility there, and that facility ended up being profiled on, I think it was 60 Minutes, because of how kids were abused there. And they were really badly abused. Like, they were put in these metal boxes as punishment in the heat. It's hot in American Samoa. Put in these metal boxes and made to suffer from the heat. And they were beaten and all kind of stuff. Like I said, it was on one of those news shows. I think it was 60 Minutes. And luckily, a lady who worked at that hospital, she saw that. She was at her house and she was watching that, and she saw it, and she knew that I was supposed to be going there, and she told me about it before. And me and the lady went and talked to the doctors and talked to the social worker and talked to all these people, and we made it to where I wasn't going to go there, so that bad things didn't happen to me. But I ended up going to this therapeutic wilderness camp in North Carolina, in this city outside of this little town called Pittsburgh. And the place was called Three Springs of North Carolina. And basically what that place was a outdoor therapeutic place for young people. And basically they had groups of young people. They had around 10 to 12 people in every group, usually one counselor at a time, and we lived outside. We lived in these platform tents. So, like, basically think about a deck with a tent on top, like an army tent. And we did a lot of our cooking outside. We did a lot of things outside. But we worked outside a lot. We, made trails so that we can go to and from places. We had to make sure the campsite was clean and that it was safe, so that there wouldn't be a fire and that kind of thing. We had to dig holes for what they called the privy, which was the shit house. The outhouse, the place you use the bathroom. And they had we had to dig holes for urinals. And we had to collect wood because we had fires to cook on. We had a lot of different little chores and stuff. Sometimes we had to build new platforms for more tents if our group was getting a little bigger. And we had a cooking and eating, they call it a cooking and eating area. It was basically just like a little wooden structure with the roof, 4 walls and a door, and it had some tables inside where we ate some of our meals. And then there was like a main campus where we went just about every day, and it had like what they called a lodge, or basically think a cafeteria. We would eat a lot of times dinner up there, and well, during the week I think we ate 3 meals per day up there, as long as our group made it up there in time. But if you arrive late, they make you go back to your campsite. But we eat a lot of our meals up there. And they also had like offices for the administration and everyone like that. And then they had like a bathhouse that had showers in it, and it had an area for the counselors to, take their showers and do whatever they need to do. I think they had a weight bench in there for them. But in the back they had a pool, but I only remember using the pool one time the whole year and a few months that I was there, or around a year that I was there. And they also had a school. It wasn't a very big school because there were only like 40 some, 50 some kids there. And there were 4 teachers, I think. And so we would rotate from class to class, depending on that schedule. And there was also an area inside the school where everybody could fit in there, and so sometimes like on Sunday nights or Saturday nights we would watch movies and stuff. Or if there was a really bad snowstorm, everybody might all sleep up there. Or if there was some other reason that we could not be outside, we would go up there and stay. But the thing that place was supposed to teach kids was how to interact with other kids. Because when you're in a group with 10 people and you have to do things together in order to meet goals and to accomplish things, you have to learn how to communicate with each other. You have to learn how to talk. You have to learn how to listen. When there's disputes, and there will be disputes, and there were many, many, many disputes, you have to stop and talk it out, work it out, find a solution, and then go forward. But the problem, the thing is, like the kids who went there were kids who were troubled. They had a lot of stuff going on in their lives, and so they sometimes acted out, and they did things that they weren't supposed to do, and sometimes they got physically violent, and the counselors would put them in holds. Like they would cross their arms and make them stand like this, and the counselor would be in the back. And sometimes they would take them to the ground like that and hold them so that they would stop hitting or fighting or kicking or running or doing whatever it is that they weren't supposed to be doing. And then we would always have to have a huddle, they called it, where we all gathered around and we talked about what happened. The counselor would say, hey, John, you did this, you weren't supposed to do this, why did you do this, what's going on, explain to us. And John would have to explain his feelings, his thoughts. He would talk, and he would say, hey, this is what's going on, this is the problems that I'm having, this is why I feel this way, this is why I'm doing these things. And then people would give him advice about how to not do that, especially the counselors, but also the other people in the group, because you had people in the group who are new, but you also had people who had been there for a year or longer, and the people who had been there for a year or longer had learned a lot of skills, and so they were leaders in the group, and they were helping the new group members deal with those things. So they would tell them about that, and then we would find a solution and get that person to make some goals about how to not do that anymore, and then we would move on and go about our day and try to catch up based on what we hadn't done. So there, we had basically we were working with the counselors because the counselors were with us 24/7. But we also had these people who came in at night and just stayed there the night, just in case something went wrong. So there would be two counselors there in the night in case somebody ran away or they got physical or whatever, or if the counselor needed to go do something, there would be someone else there. Then we had what they called seniors, which were basically supervisors of the counselors who would go from group to group and help out in different ways whenever they were needed. I mentioned the teachers already, the principal of the school. We had social workers that worked with the counselors and with the school and with the parents and they had a psychologist. He didn't work there all the time, but he came at different times, like I think maybe once a month or something. And a psychiatrist, so if people needed medication, they'd get a medication. They didn't have a doctor, didn't have a nurse, I don't think, but we had a medical kit. So if anything happened, you got scraped up, you got stung, something, they had whatever you needed to take care of that. You had a headache. And if anything worse than that happened, then they would find the right people to help you. But when I first got there, it was hard because it's different than anything that I've ever done. Being away from my family. I mean, I'd already been away from my family when I was at the hospital. But being away from my family in the woods with people I didn't know, living in a tent, cooking outside, doing all these chores, not having access to like the things that I liked, which was like my baseball cards and my magazines and my newspapers and TV shows and all those things. Didn't have those, and didn't really have. I had a way to write letters to my family, but they didn't write back very often. They did some, but not very often. So there wasn't a lot of communication. And I could only call them once a week for like 5 minutes, starting at the beginning, and then later on you get 10 minutes, and then later on I think you got 20. But that's not very much time to talk to your parents for a whole week, especially if things are going on. You're trying to resolve issues that you have with them. 5 minutes, you gotta talk. You gotta talk fast, and if they don't agree with you, you're not gonna have much time to work it out. But I pretty much enjoyed that experience. One of the things that I enjoyed about it is that every once in a while we would get to do really cool things. Like one time we went to Charlotte and we went to a museum. One time we went to Greensboro and we watched a play. And one time we went to Raleigh and we went to an art museum, another art museum. One time we went to Raleigh and we went to a hockey game. One time we went out to eat a few times. We used to go to CC's Pizza because you could get a buffet for like $5. And one time we went to church. Only one time the whole year I was there. And we did several other things. Oh, one time we went hiking for several days, 4 days I think, on the Appalachian Trail from Virginia to Tennessee. That was a really cool experience. But generally the experience was good because I liked being outside, even though at first it was kind of rough, getting used to being outside all the time. But I liked being outside. I liked the woods. I liked being active. Some people in the group I did not like, but I learned how to deal with them, And I liked, during that year, I became a leader in the group for a lot of different reasons, but partly because I was a really good communicator and because I was really smart, so I could understand what was going on with other people, and I knew what to tell them to help them. And I did extremely well in school. I won all the awards at the end of their school year. I generally understood what was expected of me, what they wanted me to do, what my goals were, and I just did whatever I needed to do to meet those. And so I became what they call the senior group member, which there had only been like one or two before, and there had been like 700 kids there. Um, but I came to a senior group member, which allowed me to go to other groups and help out in other groups and be like a example for them. And one time another thing that we did when we were more advanced, when we were at a higher level, is that we got to give tours to parents that were coming, and the parents would always come without the kids, and a lot of times the kids didn't even know this was about to happen, but the parents did. The parents would ask me questions about my experience, and they would ask me, well, what do we do if my kid doesn't want to come and he tries to run away? And I would tell them what happened in other people's situations and all that. And I would tell them basically what to expect and how to be the best parents that they could be for their kid, because of how I understood what the kid would be going through and what the kid would need from them. So I would give them advice about that. And one time I gave a tour to this guy who was a professor of engineering over at North Carolina State, and he thanked me. He was really nice. And then a few days later in the mail, and I didn't get mail very much, but I got a mail from North Carolina State, and it was this guy, it was this man, and he sent me a really nice letter, and he said, thank you, Jared, so much for taking me on a tour. Thank you for explaining all these things that you explained to me. I wish you the best of luck. I want you to know that I'm a professor of engineering at North Carolina State. You are welcome to come here anytime, and I will be so happy to give you a tour like you gave me a tour. And like I said, he gave me $100, which was a lot of money. And so that was really cool. There's nowhere to spend it where I was at, in the woods. But just to think that somebody valued what I did so much, that was really nice. And so I didn't ever get to go because after I left that place, I lived in Charlotte, and my parents weren't going to drive all the way up to Raleigh just so I could take a tour and meet a nice man. So I didn't get to go, but it was neat to be asked. And but generally, people in that program didn't have as much success as I did, for a lot of different reasons. And a lot of the people who I knew in that program, and I was there my whole 8th grade year, got out just in time for 9th grade. Those people ended up struggling, a lot of them. I tried to keep up with everyone and haven't always been able to, because some people are just hard to get hold of and find out where they are. But some of them died already, mostly by suicide or drug overdose. Some of them have been spending a lot of time in jail or in prison for different reasons, drugs being one of them, and also just having to steal because they have no other way to take care of themselves. They don't have any skills, they don't have any education, they don't have anything like that. But after I left that program, I went home for a year, and the thing about me is that I changed. I learned how to deal with things. I learned how to talk. I learned how to solve problems, learned how to express myself appropriately, get what I needed, and all that. But my parents didn't learn how to do those things. So my parents still had the idea that you just shut up, you're the kid, we're the adult, you do what we say, and that's it. So when something would go wrong, I would express myself. I would say, hey, Mom, this is what's going on. I don't like this. This is how it makes me feel. This is what I need. And they would just be like, shut the hell up. We're the parents. You do what the hell we say. And that wouldn't work for me. So we had a lot of the same problems that we had before. And at the end of the summer of my 9th grade year, I ended up being removed from the house again. And this time, I went to a social services group home. And there, it was in Monroe. Union County Social Services put me there, North Carolina. And I was one of very few white people there. There were several African American males there and a few African American females, and different people came and went. But um, and just about all the staff were African American. They were the staff were all good people, honestly. To me, I didn't. I mean, I didn't always get along with them at that age, but I can look back now and say they're all good people, and that they were trying to help me. I didn't like the way they were trying to help me back then because I wanted what I wanted, and they wanted what they wanted. But um, but I know they were good people, and so I stayed there for a few months. At the time, I was in high school. I was in the 10th grade, and so they would pick us up from school every day and take us off from school every day. But they would they would drop us off early to school every day. And when they did that, me and a couple of these other guys that were in the group home, we would go to their friend's house. They had this friend who was a juvenile delinquent also, because we were considered juvenile delinquents, or at least called that. Better said, he was at risk or he was troubled. Better said. And we would go to his house, and we would smoke cigarettes, and I'd smoke cigars, and sometimes they drank, and sometimes they would skip school and just not go to school. And they would do other things that they weren't supposed to be doing. We never did anything terribly illegal that I can think of, but we weren't following the rules. And in school I was having some trouble because I was just kind of so far ahead of everybody else academically, but struggling in other areas, just with following the rules and respecting the teachers and doing what they asked. I did the work they asked, but otherwise doing what they asked. I would a lot of times just get up and leave after I was done with my work. Like, I'm bored here. See you guys later, and just go for a walk. You can't do that, especially now. But back then, you really couldn't do it either. But I did. And so I had a lot of other problems, and I was oftentimes in the office. I was on a first-name basis. Well, they were on a first-name basis with me, but I knew all of the principals. Several of them suspended me. One time I got suspended, and the group home made me go work at the National Guard where they were doing this food packing event for people who didn't have food, So I had to volunteer for that. I had to volunteer. They made me volunteer, and so did that. But I just generally was, angry, upset, and rebellious because I felt like the people who were in charge, the adults, weren't doing what was in my best interest, and they weren't meeting my needs with clothes, with food, with all the other things that I need. And there was always arguments because my dad, I was technically in his custody, so he was still supposed to be taking care of me for food, school supplies, clothes, and all that. And he said, "Oh no, you're not living in my house. Union County Social Services need to do it." And Union County Social Services would say, "Oh no, you're supposed to do it, Joe," my dad. And so there was always finger pointing about who's supposed to be doing what. And I didn't get my needs met. And they wanted, Union County wanted to do what was in their best interest. My dad wanted to do it was in his best interest, and I wanted them to do what was in my best interest because they were the only ones that were capable of taking care of me because I couldn't take care of myself. I wasn't old enough to work. Well, after there, I got sent to a different group home up there in Salisbury. It was part of Alexandria Youth Network, they called it back then. I don't know if that organization even still exists. But I was sent there, and it was another group home. It was intense, more intense. I think the people who were in that group home had more mental health type issues. And they had also been through more trauma. And just so you know, like, mental health issues aren't always just something that you're born with. Sometimes these are things that are caused by outside, by everything that happens to you in the world. But some of these people had very serious mental health issues. and some of them were violent. Some of them were just plain dangerous uh, in a lot of ways. Not just because they might hurt you physically, but they might try to do other things. I don't want to be too explicit, but they might try to do other things to violate. And no one ever violated me that I can think of. I got in one physical altercation with the guy, but I handled that. It wasn't a big deal. Um, but for the most part, it was just like a lot of drama because like there was like kids who really couldn't handle themselves worse than me, you know. And I remember when I was at that group home at that time, I was 16. I got in a little trouble. I didn't mention this, but when I got removed the first time to that group home, to the first group home, I had gotten in a little bit of trouble and I was on probation. And after I got to the second group home, after being there a few months, I started working at a fast food restaurant, and I really liked it because I was making money. You know, not a lot, but I was making like $6 an hour or something, 6.10 maybe. I don't know. And the good thing about that, maybe 5.90, and later on I got 6.10. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I was making a little bit of money, working like 10, 12, 15 hours a week, something like that, maybe 20. But I liked my job because I liked the people there, and I liked the manager. I had a great manager, still probably one of the better. I had two great managers there, but they were the best bosses that I've ever had in a lot of ways. But I like that. But I would, because of that, I could buy clothes for myself. At school, I could. At that point, I was actually getting free food because one of the people who worked at the group home also worked at the school, and he filled out the form for me, and he got me the USDA program for the free food. So I got that. That was good. So all of my needs were met at the school. I still was having a lot of problems in class because I was way ahead of everybody else academically, and I was bored. And after I was done with my work, I still had the same problem where I was just going to do what I was going to do, and kind of, didn't give a whole lot of respect to the teachers. I got suspended a couple of times, stuff like that. We oftentimes would, when I was in this group home, we would go different places around town. We'd go to a gym, a basketball gym, shoot basketball. We would go to the library. We would go to a mall and just have free time, And when we would go to the mall, I would take things home with me that I didn't buy, and I could have bought them. I had the money, but we just did it just to do it, and just because of the thrill it gave us, And but it was illegal. We weren't supposed to do it. I was still 16, so I was a minor. But in North Carolina, if you're 16, you're an adult. At least you were at that time. They changed the law recently, but you were charged as an adult back then. And so I got in a little trouble with that. But luckily, my probation officer from those first charges I told you about, she said that has nothing to do with me. I'm not going to revoke your probation. You're not going to get sent away anywhere. Just leave it alone. It's fine. Just handle it. And so I ended up not getting in trouble on the second charge, the stealing from the store. It wasn't a big deal at all. I just went to court, and my attorney made a deal with the assistant, or with the prosecutor, and basically the judge said, as long as you don't get in trouble for the next year, I'm not going to make a judgment, so I'm not going to punish you or make you have probation or make you have a fine or anything. And so I got out of that. Then, let's see, after that, I was in two different foster homes. They call them therapeutic foster homes. They weren't very therapeutic, but that's what they call them. And in those places, I was living with African American people. The first one, it was an African American family, so it was a mom and a dad a brother and a sister, and they were both younger than me. Um, or a son and a daughter, I should say. And they were a good family, you know. They would have been better off without bringing in other people. But they were a good family. They went to church. She worked as a social worker. He worked as a truck driver. The kids did reasonably well, you know. They listened to their parents. They followed the rules at school. I don't really know how well they do in school, but I know the older boy, he didn't do as well. But I think the girl, she did better. But I got in a lot of arguments with them because they felt like my dad should be paying for the things that I needed: school supplies, clothes, food, that stuff. And my dad felt like they should be paying, or that social services could be paying. Even though I was technically in my dad's custody, I was living in their house. And so they were all pointing fingers at each other, and meanwhile my needs weren't being met. I was mad. I had money, so I could take care of some of my needs, but I didn't feel like I should have to, because the government was giving them money to take care of my needs, so they should be doing it. And so there was a lot of arguments and fights about that. And they were all like, "We're the adults, you're the kid, you shut up, you do what we say, and that's it." And that didn't work, so I ended up having to go to this other therapeutic foster home. And I lived with this man. He was a policeman. He was an African American man. He was a policeman. He's a nice guy, but he didn't know how to deal with kids. And he was gone a lot because he worked. He wasn't actually a policeman. He worked in the jail. But he was gone a lot. And he was generally a nice guy, but he was just not good with kids. And I liked this house. I had my own room. I had all my stuff. I could go in and out of a side door, so I didn't even have to see him if I didn't want to. That was good. And then I could go walk up to McDonald's or walk around the town, do whatever. But I was still having like different problems in school because I had been to a lot of schools. I went to 7 high schools in 3.5 years. I graduated early. I went to 7 high schools in 3.5 years, and I just bounced around a lot. But what happened after that, I left that place because I, at that point, was getting in a lot of arguments with my parents on the phone because I finally had a cell phone for the first time. I'd gotten one when I was in the last foster home, but I had a cell phone, so I was calling my parents, and I was getting arguments with my parents about not taking care of my needs, and I was loud about it, and so it was disrupting the other foster kid that was there in that man's house, and they said, "You gotta go." And so they sent me to another group home. This would be the 3rd group home. And that group home was in Monroe, south of Monroe, southeast of Monroe, or west of Monroe. And I wasn't there very long. I was just there at the very end of my 11th grade year. And this was the same stuff was going on. The same thing over and over, not getting my needs met, having problems with adults, having problems with teachers, and basically rebelling and doing small things, that were a problem, and that could have gotten me in more trouble than I'd already been in. But after that, I told them when I was in that 3rd group home, I told them, I said, "I've been working at a fast food restaurant. I have money. And if you do not let me go live with the shift leader of my restaurant, this nice lady, she told me, 'Jarrett, if you ever have a problem and you need somewhere to stay, you come to my house and I'll treat you like my own son.'" She had 4 kids already. But she said, "You come to my house, I'll treat you like my son. I'll take care of you." And so I told them, I said, "If you don't let me go stay with this lady, I'm going to leave, and you're not going to find me till I'm 18. I'm going out west, and good luck." And they said, "Okay, wait a second. Don't go anywhere yet." They said, "This is not a good idea for you to go over and live with this lady because we don't know her. She doesn't work for us. we don't have any control over what she does. And my parents were like, he's our son, he's in our custody. How's he going to live with someone else? But I told him this is the best thing for me because this lady was going to take care of my needs. This lady was going to make sure that I was safe. This lady, I worked with her, so she's my boss. And she was going to make sure that I got to work. She was going to make sure that I got home from work. She was going to make sure that I was doing well in school and that any problem that I had, she was going to help me deal with it, And she did, and her husband did. And let me tell you, they were the age, her and her husband were the age that I am now, 37. They had 4 kids plus me. And later on, they let a girl come and live there. So they had 6 people in their house that other than themselves. But they were taking care of all of us. And they were amazing people, and they're the best people that I've known during that whole time of growing up and going through the system, this troubled teen thing. They were amazing people, and they helped me. And I graduated early from high school, and then I moved out on my own. I got my first apartment. I got a transfer to work at another fast food restaurant, the same company. And I eventually went to work with a family company and then started going to college. And then when I was 20, I moved out west on my own. And I've been out here ever since, taking care of myself, doing okay. Done a lot of amazing things. And the reason I was able to do those amazing things is because that last couple, my supervisor and her husband, they made that possible for me because they helped me get through school, get to where I was 18, get to where I could go out on my own. And they gave me a lot of skills that were going to help me in that. And so that worked out. So here's what I would tell you if you have a troubled kid. First thing you need to do is to ask for help. And who do you ask? You ask your church. If you go to a church, you ask your church, hey, I have this problem. What do I do? And then there's probably going to be people in that church who have the same problem or have experience dealing with that problem. And they're going to help you. If you don't go to church, and even if you do go to church, you still need to ask questions. You need to go to your school, the kids' school, and you need to say, we're having these problems at home. Are you having these problems at here? What do I do? Because I don't know what to do. This is too much. And they're going to say, well, you just need to do a better parenting job. You need to do this and that. And they're going to give you some little papers that have tips and stuff that might not be useful to you. But you need to keep pressing them. You need to say, I need a solution here. Help me. And then you also need to go to your government. Your government is there to work for you, so you go to them. They don't like to work for you, but that's their job, so that's what they need to do. You need to go to your social services. You need to explain to them the problem. You need to tell them what's going on. You need to say, I need help because I know how to be a parent, but I don't know how to deal with this situation. And I want what's best for my child. I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to make sure that my child gets what he needs, or she. And you also go to your area mental health, whatever they call that where you're from. Sometimes it'll be in the Department of Health and Human Services. But you go there and you explain to them if you think your kid's having health problems. You explain to them why. Explain everything about what's going on, what kind of problems it's causing for you, what kind of problems it's causing in the school, what kind of problems it's causing the greater community, what kind of problems it's causing for your kids, anybody else that's in your family. And what you need to do when you go and talk to these people is you need to have, I don't want to use the word evidence, but you need to have documentation. So you need to have, on October 15th, my son did this, and this. This is how he dealt with it. This is how the kid responded. On October 16th, my kid did this. This is how he dealt with it. This is how the kid responded. On October 17th, we called the police. The police came. The police didn't do anything. And then the kid kept doing what he wasn't supposed to do. And just write all these things down. And then go in there when you talk to all these, to your church, to your um, school, the kids' school, the social services, and to the area mental health, whatever they call that where you are. You go tell them these things, and you say this is documentation. And the last resort is to talk to the police. Um, I don't want to encourage people to go to the police because what happens is if you threaten your kid with the police, then the kid is going to see the police as an enemy, and the police should not be an enemy. The police are there to solve problems. At least they're supposed to, and they're there to protect people. So you don't want to say, "Oh, the police are going to come. They're going to throw you in jail, and they're going to beat the hell out of you, and you're going to go to jail, and then you're going to get raped by some other bigger kid, and they're going to beat you up." Don't do that. But if you need the police, you go to the police. You explain to them what's going on, and you say, "How do I handle this? What do I do?" And hopefully, what's going to happen is the police are going to call social services. They're going to say, "There's a problem here. You need to do something. You need to help this kid get resources." And speaking of resources, you need to apply for whatever resources you need. If you don't have money for health care and mental health care, you need to apply for Medicaid. If you don't have money for food, you need to apply for food stamps. If you don't have money for transportation, you need to use whatever transportation resources are available to you and apply for whatever help you can get. If you can get free bus passes or free pickup to go to the doctor or whatever, use those resources and apply for them. Don't be too proud. You take the help you need because you need help. So you take the help you need and you do the best you can. And so another thing you can do is use resources in the community. Go to the library. The library has all sorts of resources. You can learn about these issues and educate yourself so that when you go talk to all these professionals and people in the government, you know your stuff. And you can have a conversation, you can understand what they're saying to you. And you also know what questions to ask. And another thing I would say to do is to contact experts and ask them questions. They might not always answer you, but if your kid is having mental health issues, you contact your university in your state where they have a medical hospital and there's some expert who deals with children's mental health. You send that person an email. Like I said, the person might not answer, but you should try. And if, like you're in your area, your college or your universities have lectures or open events for the public where there are experts who know about these issues with troubled teens, at-risk youth, whatever they want to call it, go and ask questions. You don't want to take your kid and embarrass the kid. "Oh, my kid, he's doing all this. Look at this terrible kid." You don't want to do that. But you go there and you say, "Hey, I'm having trouble with my kid. This is what's going on. What do I do?" And they'll give you some advice or point you in the right direction. So that's what I would tell you. There's probably some things that I skipped over or just forgot to say. But I think during this 1 hour, I've covered this pretty thoroughly. I explained my situation very in depth, probably more in depth than I have ever in public. But I think that my story isn't too far off from what happens with a lot of other people, a lot of other young people. And, I hope that there's something that you can take from what I've said, because I've said a lot, explained a lot of different things. But the best thing that you can do is to not give up on your kid. And don't become your kid's enemy. Don't become your kid's adversary. Tell your kid, "I don't like what you're doing. This is not good. This is wrong. But I love you. And I'm here to help you. And I'm going to do whatever I can to help you." And if whatever the root cause is, find that. Get all the way down to the heart of the matter. All the way down to the very root cause of the problem. Fix that. And then a lot of other things will get fixed. So like when I went to stay with my shift supervisor and her husband, the root cause of the problem was gone because I had all of my needs met. I had adults who listened and respected me and wanted what was in my best interest and were going to try to help me. And I felt loved, and I felt safe. I was around people that I enjoyed being around. I was happy. And so once we got to the root cause, and I was responsible for finding a solution, thank you very much. But once we got there, and actually the shift supervisor was too, because she offered. But once we got there, the problem was basically solved. And as an adult, I have never gotten in any trouble of any kind. Always done well. And I've actually done really well in that I've served my communities, helped make my communities better. I've helped educate people. I'm actually a teacher right now, assistant teacher. But and I'm getting a master's degree. I'm going to graduate very soon with the master's degree. So I've done well, and I hope that what happened to me happens to your kid. And I hope that you're part of the reason why that happens, why the good things happen. And your kid turns around, has a better life, and goes on and does amazing things. They don't have to go get a master's degree like I did, but just so they become a productive citizen who is stable, who, if they want to get married or have a relationship, that they're a good partner, And if they end up having kids, that they're a good parent to their kids, that hopefully, at some point they are able to get a good apartment or a house, and they just have the kind of life that they want, and they're able to go along and be a good member of their community wherever that is. So I'm going to tell you something. So you can contact me with any questions through YouTube, or you can send me an email and I will answer it confidentially, and I will never share any bit of information with anybody that I heard from you attached to your name. And I won't share any details about you at all. But if you have a question, I'll answer it. And you can email me. My personal email address, JARRETTENBROWN@gmail.com. So good luck to you, to your child, and your family, and your community. That's all I can say. Bye.